But we have Aaron Sol. I always call him Sol, and then sometimes I call him Aaron. I don't know, you have a million names. Then I call him Gabriel. But this amazing being, we met him in Roswell, and we clicked like right away. And I said, Star Being, because there wasn't very many Star Beings at the Star Knowledge Conference. There was only just like a few, and then they came talk to us because we have our radio show, Collective Frequency, and Patricio is actually our producer, and we've kind of been on the road, so we haven't like done a lot of that. So, and he's all, I need longer material. I was like, oh my God, this is like a lot of work. Travel, unpack, do all this stuff. So anyways, but we got to interview him. He's on our YouTube, so if you ever go to our YouTube, you'll see some of our shows, interviews that we've done. We also interviewed 3D, and we just kind of like picked the people that we thought would be beneficial for this Galactic Collective. So, and when we met him, it was just like, it's weird because then we saw him in Ohio, and I saw how he was like here. Well, he was higher than all the other young adults, and then all of a sudden he's like way over here. I was like, whoa, he expanded like that much? Wow. And it's neat. It's like almost like seeing your children, and then they graduated from college, and you're like, I'm so proud of you. You know, so he has a whole other aspect of looking at life, and no labels. And this is where this is what we learn from the younger generation, is no more labels. And they're a lot faster at healing, a lot faster at putting things together. So we have to honor them, because that's where we're going. We are raising the frequency a little bit, but we do have to kind of balance it out. So that's why we're all about balancing the masculine and feminine frequency. But we're excited to have you here. Thank you for coming far and wide.
Awesome. Wow. Oh, thank you so much, Tammy, for that introduction. So much easier when someone else introduces me and I know how to do it myself, because then all the selfhood comes in, and you get to work with all that. And so just super happy to be here. Super grateful that we share that connection of our fathers being one of our primary guides. I feel that very much for my own self. Both my parents are big guides for me, and my dad shows up in dreams and weaves a lot of magic there. So, and aloha to live streamers in all the places, Facebook, Galactic Conference live streamers, and yeah, super excited. It's kind of crazy, right? Having like 3 different streams of consciousness, 3 different like places where it's being perceived all at once. And so weaving all of that and being with all of the many eyes sitting on me all at once, which I suppose is not far from the fact that the one infinite eye is on us always. So just being with all of that. Cool. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about here today is systems of man and magic. That's sort of the title of this talk is Systems of Man and Magic. So looking at these systems that are in place in the world and in nature, and how we can sort of align ourselves with the more natural systems, breaking ourselves free of the matrix. It's like we all, for the most part, I can't speak for everyone, but my observation is that most people who are born here on Earth were born at some level or another into the matrix, into like that matrix of control, that matrix of like programming. We've had all this programming thrust on us, telling us you are this, you are that, all of these things, and like all of these structures that have been in place in society. But we come here together at places like this, and we collectively remember that that is not what the truth of who we are. That this matrix that's like programmed into this world and into society is not the truth of who we are. And the truth of who we are is far more expansive than that, and more authentic and more real and more natural and more aligned. And so it's looking at what these systems are that we've been born into and that have been programmed, and breaking free of those systems and aligning with the more natural one. And so it's like, I'll get into this big book later, or this little book later. Yeah, not yet, that'll come far later. First I want to take a look at this book, the 13 Moon Almanac of Synchronicity. It is based on the work from Jose Arguelles' book, Law of Time, in which he looks at a lot of what the Mayans studied. So the Mayans studied nature, studied the moon, studied the stars, and saw that there's this natural timing frequency that everything moves through. And so they identified the 1320 timing frequency, they call it the Mayan Tzolk'in, or the Tzolk'in, and it's a 260-day cycle, 13 days in a dream spell, 20 solar seals. And so we move through this 260-day cycle, and so there's this whole 1320 timing frequency that we're all aligning with. That's from what he speaks about in Law of Time, and from what the Mayans studied, is basically the natural timing frequency of the Earth. But that's not the timing frequency that's been present here on Earth in most of society. Most of society has used a different timing frequency. Jose Arguelles talks about the 1260 timing frequency. So we've had this timing frequency programmed in of like, there's 12 times 2 hours in a day, there's 12 months in a year, there's 60 minutes in an hour. All this is 1260 timing frequency, which from his work he like identifies this as this system, this matrix that's been used to program control into it. So it's like, how do we break ourselves free of that timing frequency and align with a new one? And so for me, part of what it looks like to align with these new systems is through understanding what these systems are and like the tools we have to help ourselves align. So things like this, the 13 moon calendar, where instead of having 12 months in a year, which is extremely confusing, where there's 12 months in a year, and sometimes there's 28 days, sometimes there's 29 days, sometimes there's 30 days, sometimes there's 31 days. It's extremely inconsistent. And I don't know about you guys, but it, for me, does not lead to an easy flow through time. It's like confusing as we move through time. And it never feels like there's enough time, and things are always out of whack, and we're always rushing here, there. And so for a lot of us, we've been like, okay, well, screw time. We don't need time at all. And we recognize our timeless essence, and so we move in that. But what I've found is that we kind of need a system, in a sense. If we're moving through the world, like, yes, we all exist as the one infinite everything that's moving through all of us. But as we're moving in this world of form, these systems are really helpful for helping us to move in a harmonious way. And with the 1260 timing frequency and that matrix control, everything moves with a certain harmony, but it's more of a mechanical harmony. And so systems like this give us a system that we can align with so that we can move together, move harmoniously, but do it in a way that is aligned with nature and aligned with who we truly are rather than who society has been trying to tell us we are. It is Yari Namoko de Kishnaki Nakinamazukona Yari, Dajnaki Namadakona Kishairi Damako Ishakina, Alako Narimako Jakin, Kids Damakandaku, Yari Namokondake Nakia Namoko, Arimakanda Namkozaki Nakin Makor. So I feel I'm speaking about a lot of things, some topics that are very familiar, some that are not so familiar. And so if I'm like losing you, and if there's a question you feel, like at some point I'll like ask if there's any questions, but if there's something that you feel is really pertinent and you want to like share a quick comment or a question, raise your hand and like, yeah, okay, Harvey.
This fascinating language that you speak, where does it come from? It sounds like it's ancient Indian Navajo or something. Do you know its origin? And do you know what you're saying? I know someone who speaks the same language. I'm going to introduce you to him. It's Eagle.
So when I was speaking, I was like excited. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to be speaking here, and there's going to be already people speaking about light language or whatever, like Garrett. So I won't have to introduce that. I'll be able to just do it. And then I'm like, oh, they put me before Garrett. Okay. I try not to put labels on it because it's like when we start labeling something, we limit it. But at the same time, I recognize the value of defining. It's like one of these things somewhere is going to say, I define in order to explore. And so if we are like defining what the structure that we're moving in is, then it helps make it easier to explore. So for me, like a lot of times I just call it babble because when I speak about it as babble, it gets through people's programming of like, oh, what is that? So light language is what a lot of people call it. A lot of people say light language. A lot of people say star language. I'll sometimes say babble just to get people through people's like unconscious blocks around those words. Garrett will speak a lot more about this later this weekend, but for me it's like a remembrance. I started by just like gibberish, like I was talking to a baby. That's how it started for me. Is I would be talking to a little child, and it would be gibberish. But then like about a year ago, I was at a festival and I was like talking to friends about that, and I like talked about that and I unlocked it further and I started speaking it to adults, and so it just came through more and more, and I got to meet people like Garrett, and I'm blanking on her sister's name. She's very Arcturian. She was at the Star Knowledge Conference. Shakara, yeah, Shakara. And so like meeting a lot of people in this community has activated a lot more of that. So in terms of its origins, everything comes from the same source ultimately. Like everything is coming from the same source, and it's just how many layers of separation we are from that source. How far disconnected, how much distortion is there from the original source. And so these languages, I feel, are a lot closer to that source than English. English is a system, again, so it's like all these systems. English is a system that was invented, but it was largely invented by man, by like this mechanical thought. And so there is that, it still comes from that same source, but there's distortion, so we can't communicate as fully as we may wish to. And so some of us have chosen to embrace and remember these other ways of communicating. We can communicate through body language, we can communicate in the silence, we can communicate in our eyes, and we can communicate through
I've always felt, since I first heard you doing this, that it has rhythm, and it has grammar, and that it has meaning. And I think if I get high enough, that I'll be able to understand what you're saying.
Here's I think the trick. Yes, it has rhythm, yes, it has grammar, yes, we can understand it, and that's one of my intentions in this life, is to really understand that and like outline what this system is, outline what like the living system is outside of the mechanical thought. Yet, for me, one of the ways I've been able to best understand it is by not trying to understand it. By just like allowing it to flow. Like, usually I have no freaking idea what I'm saying, which is true in English and in light language.
Does it feel like it's coming through you?
All energy is moving through us. Like any energy is moving through us. So yeah, it's moving from us through us, from who we truly are through who we are appearing to be in this moment. Is how it is seen through this lens. Cool.
What I'm feeling though is that again labels, right? When people are telling you, "Oh, you're dyslexic," or what? I think that's what I feel is the beginning
Cool.
Can I add a little?
Yeah, you can go one quick thing.
Most people don't know this, but the Romance languages and Hebrew, all are, the actual alphabets are based on a mathematical rotation of a specific geometric spiral that is a derivative mathematically of the shape tetrahedron. And if you rotate that spiral in a diverging light beam and look at the shadow of the spiral on the screen, in 26 different angles, it produces A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. And in 22 different angles, it produces Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, all the way to Z in Hebrew. So, it is certain that those two alphabets, all of the Romance languages, English, Spanish, French, German, that use that ABCD alphabet and Hebrew, the alphabets themselves are derivatives of mathematics that we didn't understand until thousands of years after people were writing them. Huh!
Yes.
I have no idea how we would write down what he's saying.
It so speaks, that's why.
Thank you, Harvey, for that. Like, super on point. Harvey's a really good friend of mine who I met in Chicago a long time ago, and he just carries so much good information. So it's just such a blessing that he flew all the way from Chicago to Albuquerque to be present at this conference.
On 3 hours' notice.
Yeah, epic. So, alphabets, systems. I'm super loving everything you guys were saying, and it's like bringing me back to alphabets and systems. And so there's these natural systems that are occurring. We can see them, like Harvey pointed out, that through refracting light in a certain way on, what was the shape you said?
Well, it's a diverging light beam, like from a point source. It diverges, and the shadow, like the shadow from a flashlight on the screen, if you rotate this object, the shadow looks like an A, looks like a B, looks like a C. The whole alphabet is derived from rotating that in 26 different angles, and the Hebrew alphabet in 22 different angles. So most of the languages, not Arabic, not Cyrillic. No, Arabic's written in a different script, and it is not in this group. But the groups that came from the star seeds that led to the written alphabets of English, Spanish, German, Polish, French, and Hebrew, and the other languages that uses the A, B, C, D, E, F, G alphabet, those alphabets are not random. Those alphabets are clearly created, and maybe indeed we are descended from, of course, ancients that were down here that already had the language figured out. But how do you figure out how to say, write the word apple? And when I say the word apple, who among us doesn't know what I'm talking about? And where is that stored? Is it in your brain? Or do you access something that is in the universal vocabulary of what an apple is? And most of you youngins are thinking, he's talking about the iPhone?
Cool. So, yeah. So it's like there's all of these systems that are moving through, and that there's this idea now, an idea that's based on some very real evidence, that the English alphabet, these 26 letters that we know in the English alphabet, actually come from something in nature. And same for the Hebrew alphabet, that these alphabets are birthed out of nature. And then it's like, so it's like that unified source. And then being birthed out of that unified source, being birthed out of nature, we then, like, as mankind, we are humankind, but I speak mankind there because I see that most of these systems that have so much distortion come from the society where it's a very patriarchal society, a very man-driven society. So, like, in my view at least, it's very much like man, the thought of man has created so much of this, and now we're returning back to our natural human thought, and we're looking at what these systems are. And so there's this idea that these alphabets actually come from source rather than from man. And so if these come from source, how can we still use these alphabets in a good way without getting caught up in the distortion that we as mankind have created. So I want to talk a little bit about one of the systems that I'm bringing through. I'm going to introduce this book more in a little bit, Elemental Spiral. But it's like one of the things this thing is bringing through is what I'm calling the living, learning, loving alphabet. And so it's the system that's been coming through. It's like I started wanting to collaborate with someone in Hawaii on a book called Polyamory for Dummies, because we were at a Tantra festival and we were talking a lot about like polyamory and what is free love and all of that. And so her and I she was planning to write it, and I started talking about collaborating with her. And then at one point, like after that discussion, all these book chapters came through, and I like sent them over to her, and she's like, "That's awesome, but that's not my book." And I'm like, "Oh, this is another thing." And so it started taking the form and be called Loving Freely is Amazing, where it was like started with like loving freely, and then loving freely is amazing, where it's like A-M-A-2-Z-ing, and so it's like introducing us to this loving freely alphabet, where it's like authenticity, attraction, affection, being blissful, compassionate communication, desiring depth, expressing emotion, and using this beautiful alphabet that we've been given by Source and looking at another way that we can look at it. And so it's like these systems have come through. So again, systems, and the system of living, learning, loving brings through 3 alphabets: the learning gracefully alphabet, the living abundantly alphabet, and the loving freely alphabet. And so this book gets to sort of dive in and start exploring just the ABCs. The whole system is still coming through. It's like you got to be patient with the systems, and what I've learned is you can try to force creation to happen, but ultimately it's like creation and that inspiration is going to happen from like an unforced place. But at the same time, through being diligent with it and like staying persistent, like, okay, I'm going to work to bring this thing through, I'm going to work to bring this thing through, then at some point it's like there's this point of surrender where it's like, okay, I've tried this, I've put energy towards that, and then I've like surrendered, and then just like a wave of inspiration hits, and it's like, and a book launches through in like 4 days.
You want me to pass them out?
Yeah, sure.
So that way you can kind of go over it and how it works.
Yes.
I'm not fooling you guys, I promise.
we got the moon and the sun right up here.
Thank you.
Harvey, what you got?
Interesting that the vowels have very specific vibrations that are useful for meditation. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but I do a meditation which goes along the lines of
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get a sound going. Okay.
That has an effect on your feeling. And why is that? And was that?
Frequency. EIOUA. It's all frequency.
It's all frequency.
Frequency, because we're water, we're mostly water, so when you're singing, it changes the frequency. Music we're a very mathematical and musically inclined universe. This universe that we're in is all about mathematical music, and the spirit that I saw was all music, and that's how we used to communicate, and we have to go back to that.
I got one other. Everybody rub their hands. Rub your hands together for a second. You too, Aaron.
Do the thing. I'm looking up a thing.
Okay. Hold your hands up, spread your fingers. Feel the energy. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, white. Now feel the ball of light between your hands. Everybody feel it? You've tuned in to the universal field here. Now one more thing. Take your right hand index finger, make it okay like that, and take your left index finger and hold it up. Everybody feel that tingle in their left index finger? That is your auric field connected into the universal field. Pretty cool, huh?
Epic. What I continue to get out of this talk more than anything is that I don't know jack shit, but if I come up and like talk about stuff, then everyone has like epic and awesome things to say, and so that's great. I was like trying to find this quote in this book. It was like something about, because you were talking about numbers, and so it was like somewhere in here it talks about like the law of time, and it's like talks about like the universe is a number, God is a number, and so it's like this book, this system of the 13 moon calendar introduces us into this system where we start seeing time and the universe and everything as a big mathematical system. And so, yeah.
That's part of the matrix that we have to manipulate to be able to, we have to be the chess player, not the pawn.
Totally. And so it's like, manipulating is one word, but I stray away from saying manipulating too much. It's like we're becoming masters of it through understanding the system that's already there. Like the past has been, there's this system of control and people understand it, and so they're controlling it and controlling people in it, which totally goes against like the law of free will of the universe, that thou shalt not violate the free will of another. But it's like through these new systems, we don't need to manipulate and control another, because we are understanding what's already there, and understanding the systems that's already there, we understand how to play the game. We don't have to like break out of the game. We actually are like breaking into a new game and playing in this new game, because this is the game that we all came here to play, is the game of nature and the game of being a human and all of this. Cool. Systems. So it's like if we see everything as a system, then it's like the whole universe is this grand system. Earth is a living system in itself. It's part of a larger living system that is the solar system. And again, solar is part of this living system that is the cosmos.
Like we come to the level here, and we as human beings are a part of this living system of Earth and part of all these living systems. And then we ourselves are a living system. Like the system is like all these interconnected parts. And so like all these parts within us, all these firing synapses of the brain, the body, the bowels, all of these things make up this whole living system that we call human. And so as we're aligning our natural system with who we truly are, then we're finding within larger ourselves within the system is the Earth, with the living system, the solar system, the living system that is the cosmos, and finding all these other living systems here. And in these living systems awakening, the old systems are falling away. There's been all these systems of control, and we can try and be like, resist them, destroy them or whatever, but ultimately it's like what you resist will persist. And so as we play the game of being a living human being in this living system, then those systems that are the dead mechanical systems can no longer survive in it. They were not designed. A system is designed to sustain itself. But that system, the living system that is the Earth, sustains itself through being alive. So that which is not alive, that which is dead and mechanical, naturally falls away and like eventually just eats itself, because it's no longer having other people to pull energy from. The old systems were sustaining themselves by feeding. It's like the scene from The Matrix, where it's like there's all these people plugged in to the Matrix, and they're like batteries creating this big, like, fueling this big, like, ship or whatever, this whole planet kind of thing. And so they had, in the Matrix, they had to use the humans as batteries. But when the humans say, I'm not going to be a battery to fuel that shitty system anymore, I'm instead going to align with what is alive and natural in here and play in this, then we are become part of this system that is naturally sustaining and naturally expanding and growing and growing.
Garrett.
Any idea where that matrix comes from?
The matrix of control?
The matrix that's here on Earth.
The programmed,
Yes.
yeah.
The inside of that.
Where does the matrix of control come from?
How did it originate?
There's been a lot of thoughts happening within the mind of man, where they came from. Let's see if we can dive into that. But it's like, so the thought of man, so I'm going to start with saying I don't know. Yeah. Where does the matrix of control come from? It comes from these egotistical desires to be better than, to be something other than that which we already are. So because we have these desires to be better than, and like, so that basically these egotistical desires to grow and expand and control, which comes from a misunderstanding that we already are naturally sustained, that we already are naturally growing. And because we've forgotten who we naturally are and that we already are a part of nature, we think that we need to control others to grow and to be powerful and all that. But the power is already within us, and it comes from this collective. And so because we've forgotten that, then man has created these systems so they can have more and more power and take power from others. And so we're choosing not to fall that way anymore. We're choosing to remember that the power is within us, and the power comes from us being together as a community. And through that, we are now playing a whole brand new game.
Another speaker here?
Garrett is the one who taught me how to speak Sasquatch. I share so often all around with people that my common thing is like calling Sasquatch woot 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 woot, and it's just so much fun to share that. He's going to talk a lot more about that later, and so look forward to Garrett's talk later.
I've always suspected that you're part Sasquatch.
So systems. This beautiful system also talks about, the Galactic Calendar also talks about like all these cycles. There's a 13-day cycle called the Dream Spell. There's also the 7-day cycle, what they call it, the Heptad or something? Yeah, the Heptad, cycle of 7. And so 7 days of creation, all ties in with all the things have said for all of time. Because all the things are all the things, and none of the things are none of the things. So, and so the Heptad cycle of 7 it talks about is like, it talks about moving through the galactic plasma. So the Dali plasma, gamma plasma, Dali, gamma, alpha, Celio, Limi, Kali, Celi. And so they talk about these different galactic plasmas, and we're moving through the spiral, and each plasma corresponds to a chakra. And so I'm guessing most here are familiar with the chakra system. It's a system, a super old system brought through by like ancient yogis back in India. And this system talks about 7 core energy centers within the body. And so I want to like really emphasize the point here that's like, some people are like, are chakras real? Some people are like, are chakras not real? And to me it's like, reality is what we make it, and so it's a system, and we can choose to align with that system, or we can choose not to align with that system, and it's totally up to us. But when we just see the chakras as a system, then we can use that system in a harmonious way. And when we know it's a system, then we also know that the systems do not limit us. Like, who we truly are is who we are beyond any system. But while we're walking this game here on Earth with everyone, then it's very useful to have systems that help us to align with everyone else, to synchronize. So systems of synchronicity is a big term that's been coming through. And so the Heptad, the cycle of 7, is one of these systems, and the chakra system. And so it's like moving through a spiral. It talks about moving through the spiral. So the first day of the week shifts every year, because in the galactic calendar there are 13 months of 28 days. Way simpler, right? And so each one is exactly 4 weeks, which means every month starts in the same day of the week. It's freaking glorious. And every month starts in the first day of the week even. And so there's also 13 times 28 is 364. I'm not sure how leap year works, but maybe there's 2 days at a time. But 364, and then the 365th day, July 25th, is the day out of time. And so because it's the day out of time, the weeks shift every year. So the first day of the year is always the first day of the week, the first day of the heptad, and it shifts every year. So right now, we started a new year, July 26th, 2018, and so until July 25th, 2019, the week starts on what we know as Thursday. And so on Thursday, being the first day of the heptad, Thursday is Dali plasma, or the crown chakra. And then it's like a spiraling down, and so then we're down at the root chakra on Friday, and then we're on Saturday, we're at the third eye chakra. How wonderful that today, while we're sharing all of this beautiful wisdom with each other, is the third eye day, where it's like all about expanding and seeing things from a different lens.
Indigo. That's the frequency of third eye. And the Hebrew calendar is also a 28-day calendar. It's a lunar calendar. And the human biological rhythm is a 28-day calendar. So how did we end up with this Gregorian calendar? Who the hell was Gregory?
Somebody peed further than the other person.
My calendar, I peed further.
So there's actually a bunch of information about how the Gregorian calendar, so for those who are interested, like lawoftime.org has a lot of super good information if you want to really get the core download of like the 13 moon calendar, how we ended up in this space with like the old system. Basically it was,
people like Julius Caesar and Augustus Caesar. Which one has more days? Who knows their months? Their Gregorian months. Okay. So it was like, right, yes, Julius and Augustus Caesar were basically like, we're so much better than everybody. We deserve, so we're gonna name a month ourselves, and we're gonna have 31 days in our month, while most of those other months only have 30 days. So basically a big old pissing contest between people is how that calendar system came to be. Anyways, crown chakra, root chakra, Saturday, third eye. Sunday we move down to the sacral. Monday we move to the throat. Tuesday we move to the solar plexus, and Wednesday we move to the heart. And so every single week we're moving in this spiral where we're spiraling deeper and deeper into our heart. It's like building momentum and moving up, and then we're going into the heart, and from the heart we're like, boom, expanding and blossoming out to the world.
I've studied this, and I know of no one other than yourself who has done this 1, 2, top to bottom, till you get to the heart. That is very interesting. And it's also somehow right. I go through this red, orange, green, blue, indigo, violet, white. Those tones happen to synchronize with the audio, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, with the spectrum, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, which are harmonics of one another. Your red is, the frequency of red has the same 0 crossings as the tone do. Now, this seems to be biologically right to me. Dowses is correct. I don't know why, but I've never seen anybody do this before. This is interesting. Where did you find that?
It's like all around, and it's just like looking at tools we already have. Like the beautiful thing about like creating this day and age is like everything has already been created. All we're doing is finding what's already here and bringing it through. And so it's like this galactic calendar already was talking about it. So the Mayans have known this for ages, known about that. And it's like those who study Reiki. Gail was talking about Reiki earlier. If you look at Choku Rei, the like core symbol of Reiki, it like spirals in. Like it's on the front of this book. Like look at the book, and it's like it spirals in, and all I did was overlay the chakra image onto it. Spirals in, goes down, and spirals around. It literally is like doing this exact same spiral. And so somewhere along the lines, we got to thinking that it had to be linear. It had to either be bottom up. We had to move from our root up to the crown to ascend, or we had to move from the crown down. We had to, like, potentially unpopular opinion here, but that we had to, like, know that we're star beings coming back down. But to me, it's like, it's both. And I'm not saying that's like everyone here, but it's like something I see a lot amongst, not saying it's even anyone here, but saying it's something I see a lot among a lot of crowds that I've been a part of, is that we have to be purely top down, or that we have to be purely bottom up. Whereas I think a more holistic system is necessary, that we're like integrating both, that we're knowing our connection to the above, and we're knowing our connection to the below, and we're moving on this deeper journey, spiraling inwards. Let's see. So yeah, we'll talk more about the book right now. So it's like there's this spiral, the heptad, the cycle of 7 that the Galactic Calendar talks about. And so for me, when I first saw this, like, or not necessarily when I saw this, yeah, one of the core came from reading Chino book, the 1111 teachings, and in it there's a channeling from someone, I forget quite who it is. There's actually 2 epic channelings. There's one from Archangel Gabriel, which talks about like activating like the 7 solar suns. So that was like a big activation. And then there's another one talking about the 7 elements. There's a few ones talking about the elements in that book. It's a super good book, super good channeling. I left mine with my friend. She needs to ship it back to me. And so in one of those channelings, they talk about the 7 elements. And the 7 elements they refer to are earth, water, fire, air, ether, mana, and essence. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, cool. So it's like the same system of 7. Each one of these, like root chakra, is earth. Sacral chakra, water. Solar plexus, fire. Heart chakra, air. Throat chakra, ether. Third eye, mana. And crown is essence. And it just fits super well. I've shifted it slightly in this version of the book. The first version, I used those exact 7. In this one, I shifted it so that, or it was shifted. I shifted. The system shifted and is now 7th and 6th are being in motion, because it's like we really understood that those words can communicate a lot more. Essence and mana, it's like what does that mean? And we all have different ones. But being in motion, like we understand being as this timeless, formless aspect of who we are, and we understand motion as the motion of all the things. Like everything here on Earth in the universe is motion. It's like the whole universe is this perpetual motion device, and it's all motion. And what is it that's in motion? Well, we are what is in motion, and that we are shows up as these elements. And so this system, this elements in motion that we're calling it, is introducing us to a way of looking at everything, the universe, us, all of it, as this movement of the elements, as this being, and as this motion of these 5 elements. Created with being in motion, it creates this system of 7, which correlates directly. And so in this system, elemental spiral, we are basically aligning with those 7 by aligning with being, with earth, with motion, with water, ether, fire, and air. And so we're always coming back to the air, as the air is the bridge between the higher and the lower. And I think we all can agree that breath is pretty much one of our greatest keys here. Thank you, Gail, for calling that in. So breathing deeply. If we all want to just take a few breaths deep. Else, does anybody have a strong message that wants to be delivered to them in this moment? Yeah, I thought you did. Yes. Yeah, so we start, right now the week starts on Thursday. starting July 2019, it'll start on Friday, and then a year after that, it'll start on Thursday. But right now, the heptad is starting on Thursday. So Thursday is crown chakra, being. Friday is earth, root chakra. Saturday, today, is third eye, motion. So it's like that eye that is seeing the motion of all of it.
Pineal, which is an eye.
Yeah, right here at the center of the brain. So it's like one of the good practices that this book will talk about is on this day, breathing balance into the brain. So we find that balanced breath within, and then we're breathing balance into the brain. So we're continuing to breathe that balance, and it harmonizes that element, that essence for us, basically, motion. So Saturday is third eye, motion. Sunday is water, sacral. Monday is ether, throat. Tuesday is fire, solar plexus. And Wednesday is heart, air.
Father, mother, child, soul, soul, soul. Language being very important. How do you think the Greek and Roman aspect, like Thursday is Thor's day, Saturday is Saturn day, so how do you think that our normal labels affect maybe the energy of these days?
Yeah, definitely seems that the labels are coming from old paradigm. Thor's day, Saturn's day, like all these masculine gods. And so continuing to identify with those labels, it keeps us, in a certain sense, trapped in that old paradigm. And so that's where, to me, it's important for us to find these new systems that are aligned with nature that we can align with, so that we're no longer needing to speak in that old one. That's why, in here, I don't say crown, except for a very brief mention at the beginning when I talk about moving through the spiral. I say it, but I don't label the chapters as this is Thursday, this is Friday, because I think it's important for us to move away from that and using these practices to align with a new system, so that we can break out of that old paradigm of we're naming everything after these really strong, powerful men who did all these things. So we're gonna go here first.
In your book here was saying, practice the meditation. What time of day do you think is the best day to do that, or time of day to do that?
I like doing a meditation practice in the morning and at night, and it's also just carrying the awareness of it. And so when I'm waking up in the morning, one of the first things my conscious usually goes to is cool, it's motion, day of motion, it's third eye day. And so just starting to tap into that. And so as I'm waking up, I'm starting to align with those energies, and then I'll usually take 20 minutes or something to sit down and really go through the practice. On this website, livelearn.love, I have guided meditations. They're old, they're with the old system without the new update, but I'll be uploading new guided meditations soon. And so for now, it's just continuing to align with them as the book, as reading the book, and you'll find your own meditation just from what the book has and find a way that naturally aligns. But morning is really good, and at night, because it's when we're tapping into this meditation, it's helping us see what the energies of this day are. And so we do it in the morning to align, and we do it at the end of the day to kind of reflect. It's oh, I see where that fit in, and I see where that fit in. And just seeing that helps us align with this system of synchronicity.
In Judaism, traditionally, we light our candles and say our prayers at sundown. And there is something about sundown that's also very important, as sun up is for astrological reasons. Your ascendant is dependent on where the sun is at sun up when you're born. The frequencies that we're going through that relate to the chakras also may relate to the diameter of planets that resonate with those things. Thursday traditionally is associated with Jupiter, largest planet, the very given expansive energy in astrology. Wednesday is Saturn, which is more regulatory. The other days also have planets associated with them, but probably will show up in the next edition of this wonderful little book. By the way, kudos again, this is awesome.
Cool, thank you. You brought something through really powerful there, and I agree. Most powerful time to do is meditation, sun up and sundown, for sure, because we're connecting to the sun and to the earth, and so as we like connect with that sun right as the sun's coming up and sunrise is going down, then it really will help synchronize super beautifully with the whole system. So super potent. Yeah.
I practice often with the Buddhist tradition. Actually, I'm pretty eclectic all the way around, many different ways of being. But I do it in the sense of life is a meditation. And so every moment is a meditation, and the existence is a meditation. And what happens when you're doing that is you're
Yes, yes, yes. So did you say I again? Things. Yeah, I'll talk about okay, one more question. Who's got it? Who's got the most potent, activated, epic, aligned question?
no more questions.
Garrett, you've got a question.
I didn't do it.
Oh no, I was thinking you have a question to ask.
Oh no.
Yeah, okay. I was guessing. Okay, cool. So it seems like questions have all been answered. I want to speak a little bit about, it's like the day of motion. So in motion, we're being aware of seeing everything as motion. These words are motion. It's moving through to each and every one of you. Your eyes are perception, I don't know, interesting. But it's like, it's all motion. That's the motion of the mind. Perception is the motion of the mind. The sound waves are moving, the light is moving, it's all motion. And one of the things I want to talk about with motion is also what the motions that are in place here in this world that are emerging right now are. It's like this whole Galactic Collective is this big, beautiful motion that's bringing people together and sharing really good knowledge, sharing really good wisdom, creating a community. And
I want to talk about something that we're working. This system, Live, Learn, Love, is livelearn.love, where you can go check out the system, get this book for free, all of this. And this system is actually intended to be sort of a system of synchronicity that we're going to integrate really deeply with a community we're birthing called the Rainbow Stars, and to really win a community that's all about empowered, inspired, true loving leadership. So really helping us all to remember that we are and together the to move forward in this world in a good way. And I want to start doing galactivation immersions where we're bringing 16 people together for 1 month to really move through these processes, move through the elemental spark, move through all these other things. It's like a yoga teacher training kind of thing, but really activating and galactivating these tools within ourselves, and so that we can come together as a community and move forward in a good way. And so I just really wanted to plant that seed with everyone here and with the viewers, because there's a really beautiful thing emerging. And there will be a lot more coming out about that as time goes on. But we're intending to do our first immersion in Maui, probably like this early spring, like February or March. And so if you feel called to be a part of helping to create that, I would super love to connect. There's a lot of different movements and everything interweaving. And so I just want to make that invitation to connect there. Also the invitation to just connect on whatever movements are moving through. If you have something that you're really working on that's really powerful, I love doing the weaving thing and seeing where it's all connected. I'm connected to a lot of different people who are doing a lot of really powerful things on Earth, and so I like to be a weaver within all of it. And if you're interested in talking about the system and all of that, yeah, so basically just I'm super open and would love to connect with any and all about community, about systems, about spirals and elements and living and learning and loving all the things. I didn't even get a chance to dive into this, but this is a system I really love, is Nudgy. And so that's another system I really resonate with, that helps to be a system of reflection to help us understand more about who we are within this incarnation. And so, yeah, however you would like to connect, I would super love it. And I'm so grateful for everyone being here and receiving this message and sharing all of it. And it looks like we have one more question before we go.
Comment and something to the colleague to you. What would you like to manifest as our exchange?
Right, right, yeah. The books, everyone who's here, I want you to have a book, so like, if you don't have anything to give, don't feel like you have to, but I very gratefully welcome donations for it, whether that's like $5 or $10 or a crystal or another book, or if you have like the keys to a Tesla like Model X or something you want to give, I welcome that too. So yeah, welcome and open to all of it, and I just feel really passionate about sharing this system, so that's to me the most important thing. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Aloha, namaste, mahalo, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sol.